So welcome everyone to Dictation and Voice Commands. This was a challenging webinar when I was creating it because of the sheer amount of what we could cover. So what I've tried to do is limit it to the shortest amount of information that you need to get started with dictation and voice control. If you want more, there is a full course that we have developed. So just let us know if you're interested in that. We're not currently running it as an open course, but if there's enough demand, then we can always run it again on an ad hoc basis. And again, if you've got students that you want us to work with in particular, we can likely do that as well, or find someone who can. So today we'll be looking at what we mean by dictation and voice control, what the difference is there. We'll be giving you some setup tips, and then we'll be looking through the main options for dictation and the main options for voice control. So we've kept it nice and simple. All the things we could have covered, how to structure teaching, to use these tools, an in-depth look at the solutions and their features, demonstrations of all the different solutions, the list of commands that you can use within these, how to deal with dysarthric or unclear speech, and using communication aids with environmental controls. And that includes example grids or kind of Toby Dynavox grids as well. So that is what we are and aren't covering, but let me know if you've got any particular questions as we go. So dictation is using your voice to write words directly into the device, and voice commands is us telling the device to carry out an action. That's how we split it today. So with both, you'll be looking at a good quality of sound input. The better quality of sound input, the more likely that you're going to be successful with either of those, really. So we're looking at buying noise cancelling headsets are really useful, especially if you're using it in a noisy environment. We're wanting something that's comfortable, especially if the student's going to be using it day in, day out. You can have headsets with one ear or two, so it depends on whether you want the student to be kind of interacting with the wider environment or whether you want them to be just concentrating on what they're doing. We're looking for something quite hard wearing. I've usually said kind of £40 upwards is generally a good headset. Of course, you're still looking for good reviews and from a reputable dealer and all the rest of things. If you've got a USB connection, that's better. Some of them have the old connections with the 3.5mm jack where you'd be plugging it into a microphone and then separately to a headset. Those are not as good in terms of quality. The USB ones generally have a sound card built into them that will do the processing. So USB, better quality. Bluetooth, I mean, in the past we've said don't use it, but if it's the right thing for the student, then consider it. But there may be an issue, especially sometimes they just don't connect and there's no rhyme or reason to it. And sometimes you'll get a delay with the audio, which can be a big deal if you're looking for words to appear on the page and there's a delay. So just worth considering those two things. So for the main options with dictation, not an exhaustive list, but we can do this within Microsoft Office, in Word, Outlook, OneNote, and PowerPoint. We can do this in Google Docs, on Android devices, the mobile phones, Apple iOS, so both tablets and phones. Otter AI is a particular tool that we've used more recently, and also Dragon Naturally Speaking. For Microsoft Office, you've got a few different options. You've got dictate your documents in Word for Windows and Mac OS as well, or you can dictate your documents in Word for the web. And what I've done here is I've just added what the pictures are and where to access these and what they look like. So generally we're looking for that kind of microphone symbol. It's usually blue. And if you see that in any kind of window, then the chances are that's your dictate tool. So it's just finding that in the different platforms. You can also do it in Outlook for Windows and Mac. That's particularly useful if you're working with students who want to compose emails, and maybe you could just get them to do the draft using their voice. People often think about doing it in Word, but they don't always think of the other platforms. So it's worth considering Outlook. It's also worth considering using OneNote. There's good accessibility features in OneNote in terms of mixed media and different formatting. For PowerPoint as well, you can dictate straight into your presentations and your slide notes in PowerPoint. I know personally, what I do is use it for the alt text. So if you're putting in an image and then you right click and adding the alt text to it, then I use Dictation to just quickly write it down. Yeah, Fatima, I see that you've asked, can you also do it on a Gmail email? That's a good question. I'm not sure. I will find out for you at the end. I know you can on Google Docs, which is what we're covering next. So even if you couldn't, I'd be tempted to do it in Google Docs and then kind of either export it to an email or copy and paste. But I'll have a look at Gmail and see what's built in. I don't think so, but yeah, I'll find out. Google Docs has it built in. There's a few more clicks away, whereas Microsoft have gone for it in the same window, so it'll usually be there visible straight away on the bar. With Google Docs, you have to do a little bit more searching. So I've added the diagram on the right-hand side, and what it shows is that you're clicking on the tools bar at the top and then going down to voice typing. Once you've done that, you don't need to do it again. The icon of the microphone will be there, and then you can just click that to speak. It works in Chrome, Edge, and Safari. So you should be able to use it in all those documents. I think in all those browsers. I think before it only worked in Chrome, so it looks like they've expanded that a little bit. There are different languages for these as well, for both this and some of the Microsoft ones. For Android, it's quite simple, really. On your mobile device, if you can see a keyboard, the chances are that you can use the voice. They call it typing with your voice or voice typing. So I haven't found anywhere that this hasn't worked. So I think it's worked in every single window that I've tried, and it's built in. If it's not there, so we're looking for that little microphone symbol again at the top of the keyboard. If it's not there, it might be by the space bar. There's a few different layouts with Android. It isn't always the most consistent. But if you can't see it anywhere on the keyboard, you can go to settings, and then what I'd say is just search for voice typing, because it used to live somewhere else in the settings and then they've changed it. So the chances are they might change it again. So the simplest way is just to go to settings, and then there's a little search bar there and you can search for voice typing. That's quite a good way to search for different accessibility settings rather than having to know exactly where they are as well. For Apple, it's also built into the keyboard. It's consistently by the space bar at the bottom there. And same kind of deal with Android, really. If it's not on, you can go to settings, general, and keyboard, and it's consistently lived there as a setting, so you can always find it. And that means that students can use that in any window that uses a keyboard, which I think is a really good way of approaching built-in accessibility. A tool that I've been particularly keen on, and we've seen it develop a fair amount over time, is otter.ai. I think they were one of the first companies to just add AI to the end of their title. I quite like it, just add AI to things. Oh, we've had, yeah. So it's a free transcription tool. You can have up to 300 minutes per month free on it. And I think the maximum you can use is half an hour for that per upload or per session. And beyond that, there are some paid options as well. So I think if you were using it with a student who was using it more than 300 minutes per month, the value would be there. It attributes speakers. What that means is that when you look back through the notes, you can actually add who the speakers are, and then it will recognize the voice. And it's fairly accurate at doing that. I'd say it makes mistakes now and again, but as a general rule of thumb, it'll tell you who said what once you've kind of said which speaker is which. It works with Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and Google Meet, that it's all built into there. And it can also be used to generate subtitles for videos. So after this webinar today, what I'm going to do is upload this video to Otter, and it will create a transcript for me. I'll go through and I'll edit, and I'll listen back to it, and I'll just see if there's any mistakes. But generally, it's more accurate than some of the built-in tools. And then you can create an SRT file from that and then upload it to YouTube. So you can get some very accurate subtitles with timings built into it. It's good to start as a free tool. The fact that it's available on Windows, on Apple, and on Android means that you can have students who are using this on the go on their mobile phone, and then maybe when they want to listen back through things or go with more detail, they might be using it on a laptop or a computer of some kind. Okay, finally, something that used to be one of the only options is Dragon, naturally speaking. Since then, we've had a lot more that's built in now. Dragon still has some features that are not available. It's actually spans between what I'd call dictation and voice control, in that you can use it to both do dictation, but then also you can use commands within it. It's got very good levels of accuracy. You train a voice profile at the start, and then it recognizes your voice better. So for some students who might not get on well with the built-in tools, it means that there's a chance that Dragon will work better with them. There's little things that might make a difference. So if one of those inbuilt tool is constantly getting the student's name wrong, or a name wrong that they're constantly using, there's no way really to improve that with the inbuilt tools. With Dragon, we can make corrections. We can improve the quality of the voice recognition. It can control the computer completely with your voice. So from the moment that the computer turns on, if Dragon was running, I could do everything that I could do with a mouse and keyboard. It's fairly complex to do that, but it does mean that it's worth considering for students who need to control a computer with their voice. Sometimes it is unreliable in terms of it is a very demanding program on the system, so you can get crashes and things like that. But it is a really good option if you're looking for something that's professional. It can be used in exam situations as well. I've left a link to the computer requirements because it's important that you get the right spec for that. If there's a delay on it, then it can be a little bit inaccurate. So for any of these dictation tools, these are general rules, and I'm not saying don't use it if students don't fulfill all of these, but you just in terms of who you're going to get on better with this, you're looking for students with clear voices, with a good understanding of technology, with resilience. So that means if something goes wrong, are they able to come back and have another go at it? Who are comfortable with making mistakes and have a good support. It's generally a tool where it's good to check in with students and see how they're doing, and maybe supervise them a little bit to begin with, because it can be quite frustrating when it goes wrong. Just an additional point with that clear voices, we have actually found that some students who use this as part of a speech target can actually speak clearer than they would do to people around them. So because they know that it's detecting the voice, it's actually been used with speech and language therapy sessions to improve the quality of the vocalizations. So that's worth considering as well. Okay, so that was dictation, whistle stop tour. We're now moving on to voice control, even though Dragon, kind of is within that a little bit. So our main options are Amazon Alexa, which is built into Echo and Fire Sticks, Google Assistant, which is met in Google Home and Android, Apple Siri, which is on iPhone, iPads, Apple Watch, Dragon, which we've mentioned, computers and laptops, VoiceIt for dysarthric speech on iPads and iPhones. We're not going to cover that today, but it is an option. Android has inbuilt access, and smart TVs as well, just if we're looking at being completionists there. So Alexa versus Google is kind of one of your main choices when you're looking at kind of home control and devices that are fairly affordable and widely available. So with both of them, I think it's worth considering what you want to access. Are the things around the house that you want to access, or is it specifically things within the device? Let the students have a say wherever possible, and if possible, try it. Find people who already have these devices and have a go with them yourself. That's the best way, really, to kind of acquaint yourself with it. In terms of setup in organization, this is quite an important slide, more as a reference than anything else. You can show your IT teams if they're struggling to set this up. So a firewall, and that's the security kind of features within an organization, will actively block incoming connections. So devices such as an Alexa need those incoming connections to work. So network technicians will need to open ports on the firewall or create rules to allow this. So there's a picture on the right that just shows the firewall is kind of blocking those incoming connections, and that's what we need to get to the computer. We've actually got the details that your IT teams will need there. Don't ask me to translate that into English, but it's IT speak. They'll get it. They'll understand it, and that should help them to understand how to ensure that those incoming connections make it through. Okay. We do have some responsibilities in terms of the security within our organisations. Department for Education has said that governing bodies and proprietors should ensure their school and college has appropriate filters and monitoring systems in place. It's a little bit difficult with some of these devices because we need searches for illegal or extremist content to be tracked back to the user, and that's impossible with voice activated systems as they stand. So the way that we're looking to get around, not to get around this, sorry, to meet this really, is in terms of risk assessments and alternative measures. So some control being in place within your organization of who can use this, how do we know who's using this, and devices in public places are kind of not available to everyone, and they're locked away when not in use. So we really want people to use this, but we want them to use it safely and just to make sure that we're meeting all our obligations. Apple also has voice control built in. It's always good to remember that it's not just an iPad, it's also Mac, it's also iPhone, it's the Apple Watch, Apple TV, and the HomePad as well. They've got really good resources on their Apple accessibility that can kind of break down how to use those in the different scenarios. For Google Assistant, it's built into Google Home. It's available on over 1 billion devices worldwide now. I'm not going through the commands today just because it's an introductory webinar, but I have included the link to it so you can have a little look through there. Android has access inbuilt, and it's a little bit more tricky than the built-in Apple one in that you have to download the voice access app. So that's within the Play Store. You can look for voice access app and then download it from there. Once you've got that installed, you can open settings, tap accessibility, and then tap voice access, and you can turn it on. There's a full guide and a full list of commands there, but essentially what you do, if you look on the right hand side, it's assigned a number to each of the clickable kind of options on the screen. So then you can choose which number you want to click on and make your way through the system like that. There are other voice commands that you can use as well, but that's just in terms of navigating a menu. Now, for all of these things, what we're looking at focusing on is not just the devices, but we're looking at how are students going to use this. So we've chosen an example of an Alexa, but this is what we want to do for our students. We want them to look at how is the most meaningful and useful and kind of best kind of ongoing way for them to use it. So for this student, it might be the week before where they've said, Alexa, set an appointment for doctors Wednesday at 11 a.m. Something like that. So you can set all your appointments in advance of time. The night before something, it might say, Alexa, set an alarm. I'm also sorry if anyone has any devices there that are going off right now. Um, and then on the day, you could be waking up and saying, Alexa, well, I need a coat today. So you don't even have to go through that process of seeing what the weather is and then making the decision. You can actually kind of help have some advice as you're going along. You can say, what am I doing today? Which will go through all those appointments that you've previously set and give you an idea of what you've got on. You can say, how do I get the bus to Gloucester College? And it will break it down and give you some options of how you can do that. During the day, if you were doing some research on a particular project, you could say, Alexa, what are the different types of forests? Or lots of different types of questions, really. On the evening, you could say, Alexa, find me an easy recipe to make for dinner. You can also ask it to make recipes with certain ingredients that you've already got in the fridge, which is quite useful. You could say, Alexa, call mum, and connect and write messages and things like that. On the night time, you could say, play relaxing music. So this is just one student example, and it's just about you kind of breaking down your profile of what do your students want to access? What do they want to do? How can we make this process work for them? And that's the best way to kind of consider voice commands and things like that. We haven't covered lots on kind of home control, but there is lots you can do with voice access and voice commands in terms of that. There's a really useful resource here called Projects Assist. It breaks down both the devices itself, and it also covers individual stories from those learners as well. So really useful resource there. And that's available in the slides, obviously, when I send them through. Okay, so that's everything today. Make sure to sign up to the Tech Ability newsletter and we'll keep you updated with all the upcoming webinars and training and everything else. If today hasn't given you quite enough detail, then you can get in touch with us and just let us know. We can always look at running the voice control course or dictation or putting on something more custom. Feel free to email us techability@natspec.org.uk. And yeah, follow us on our social media. And just thank you everyone today for attending. I'm going to stay around if there's any questions. But if you're heading off, thank you very much and take care. Okay, bye.